I shot my husband in the chest with his own hunting rifle, right there in our Montana cabin. But the bullet missed his heart by inches because I hesitated, just for a split second, remembering the vows we whispered under that blood-red sunset. Instead of calling the cops, I dragged his bleeding body to the truck and drove him to the ER myself, whispering lies about a hunting accident while the doctors stitched him up and the nurses eyed me like I was the monster. That night, as he lay pale and groaning in the hospital bed, I slipped the real story into a locked box in my mind. The affair, the embezzlement, the way he'd framed me for his sins to keep his golden boy image intact. And I decided then that bullets were too quick. I dismantle him piece by piece in the one place he thought he owned me: court. It started 6 years ago, back when we were the envy of Bozeman's tech scene, Lily and Jake Hargrove, the power couple who'd bootstrapped Hargrove Innovations from a garage startup to a $50 million empire in AI-driven agritech. I was the brains, the one who coded through sleepless nights while Jake schmoozed investors at craft breweries, flashing that boyish grin that made venture capitalists open their checkbooks like it was Christmas. We met at Stanford. Him, the charming poli-sci major with dreams of Silicon Valley glory. Me, the comp-sci prodigy who'd grown up hacking farm equipment in rural Idaho to escape the dust and debt of my family's failing ranch. He proposed on the Golden Gate Bridge with a ring that cost more than my parents' annual mortgage, and I said yes because for the first time, someone saw me as more than the girl with grease under her nails. But Jake had always been a chameleon, shifting skins to fit whatever room he walked into. In public, he was the devoted husband, posting Instagram reels of us hiking Glacier National Park, my arm looped through his as we toasted with local IPAs at sunset. Behind closed doors, the mask slipped. The first crack came during a funding round in Seattle, $10 million on the line. And Jake, buzzed on whiskey sours, cornered me in the hotel bar bathroom, his breath hot against my ear. Loosen up, Lil. These VCs don't want a bitchy nerd, they want a team player. I laughed it off then, chalked it up to stress, but it festered like a splinter under my skin. By year 3 of marriage, the affair started. Subtle at first, a lingering hug with the marketing intern at the office holiday party, texts buzzing late at night that he'd delete before I could glance over. I confronted him once, after finding a hotel receipt crumpled in his coat pocket for a business trip to Vegas that matched the dates of my coding retreat. He gaslit me masterfully, eyes wide with feigned hurt. Babe, it's just work. You're the one who's always buried in code. Maybe if you trusted me more. I swallowed it. Because what else could I do? Our company was exploding. We'd just bought the cabin up in the Bitterroot Valley. And admitting the rot meant admitting I'd built my dream on quicksand. The real betrayal hit like a Montana blizzard, sudden, blinding, and bone-chilling. It was 2 years ago, during the audit for our Series B round. The accountants flagged irregularities, $2.5 million siphoned from R&D slush funds into offshore accounts. I panicked, combing through ledgers until I traced it to Jake's login, transfers disguised as vendor payments to a shell company in the Caymans. He was cooking the books, funneling cash to fund his gambling habit at underground poker dens in Missoula, the kind where tech bros like him lost fortunes pretending they were wolves of Wall Street. I confronted him that night in the cabin, the snow piling up outside like a shroud. Jake. What the hell? This could tank everything. Prison? Lily. We're talking federal wire fraud. He didn't deny it. Instead, he poured us both scotch from the decanter I'd bought him for our anniversary, sat me down on the leather couch we'd picked out in Billings, and spun a tale that twisted my guts. Turns out, the money wasn't just for poker. It was to cover bribes to a USDA official, greasing palms so our AI crop monitors could skirt environmental regs on pesticide tracking. It was for us, Lil, he said, his voice cracking just enough to sell it. One slip, and the feds shut us down. I did it to protect what we built. Protect? Bullshit. I dove deeper the next day, hacking into his encrypted email from my laptop while he was at a meeting. That's when I found the smoking gun, correspondence with a divorce attorney, dated months before the audit. He'd been planning to pin the whole scam on me, fabricate logs showing I'd authorized the transfers, use my erratic, workaholic tendencies as character evidence. The kicker? He'd already seeded rumors with the board, whispering that my instability was why I hadn't noticed the discrepancies sooner. I was the fall guy, the sacrificial lamb for his house of cards. And the affairs? They were leverage, photos of me stressed out on late-night work benders, edited to look like coke-fueled rants, ready to torpedo my credibility in court. That revelation should have ended us right there. I pictured it, storming into the boardroom, spilling the beans, watching his empire crumble like dry Montana clay. But I didn't. Call it love, or stupidity, or the bone-deep fear of losing the only family I'd ever built. Instead, I covered for him. I rerouted the funds back through legitimate channels, forged timestamps to make it look like a vendor glitch, and when the auditors pressed, I took the heat, claimed it was my oversight, my ambition blinding me to details. The board bought it, slapped my wrist with a demotion to CTO emeritus, and Jake got a quiet promotion to CEO. He thanked me with a weekend in Jackson Hole, whispering in the hot tub how I was his rock, his savior. I smiled through gritted teeth, already plotting the slow bleed. Life dragged on in that toxic rhythm, me grinding code for features he'd take credit for at TEDx Talks, him schmoozing at Austin's South by Southwest afterparties while I fielded investor calls from the hotel bathroom. The cabin became our pressure cooker. Weekends filled with fly fishing on the Bitterroot River where he'd cast lines and cast outs. You sure you're okay? Lil, you've been distant. Distant? I was a ghost haunting my own marriage. Every smile a mask. Every touch a calculation. I started documenting everything, screenshots, voicemails, even planting a nanny cam in his home office disguised as a smart speaker. The footage was gold. Late-night calls to bookies. Pillow talk with his latest side piece, a yoga instructor from Whitefish who called him my cowboy king. And worst of all, a drunken confession to his brother over Zoom. Lily's too smart for her own good. If she ever flips, I'm screwed, but hey, half her net worth in the divorce? Worth it. The yoga instructor was the spark that finally ignited the fuse. I caught them last summer, tangled in our king-sized bed while I was supposed to be at a conference in Denver. I'd flown back early. Good screaming warnings. And parked down the block like some noir detective. Peering through the blinds, I saw it all, her laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings, his hands where they had no right to be. I didn't burst in. No screaming. No tears. I slipped away, drove to the nearest dive bar in town, nursed a PBR until the numbness set in, then went home and slept in the guest room. The next morning, I served him breakfast like nothing happened, avocado toast with poached eggs, his favorite, and over coffee. I said, "We need to talk about the future." He assumed it was about kids, or expansion to the coasts. I let him ramble, nodding along until I dropped the bomb. Divorce papers, drafted by the sharpest family lawyer in Helena. No fault. Clean split, half the company, half the assets, alimony structured to bleed him slow. His face crumpled, then hardened into that predatory gleam I'd seen in boardrooms. You think you can just walk? After everything I've done? Everything he'd done. The irony burned like cheap whiskey. He lawyered up fast, hiring a shark from Denver named Harlan Voss, the kind of attorney who made headlines dismantling celeb marriages. Pre-trial depositions were a circus, Jake painting me as the cold, ambitious harpy who'd neglected our sacred bond for algorithms and venture calls. He leaked stories to the Bozeman Daily Chronicle, Tech Titan's wife files for divorce amid creative differences. Is Hargrove Innovations in turmoil? The comment sections lit up with armchair feminists calling me a gold digger and tradwives labeling me a career-obsessed witch. I kept my head down, focusing on the kill shot, that manila envelope, fat with printouts, drives, and affidavits that would expose not just the affairs, but the fraud I'd buried for him. Trial day dawned crisp and clear, the kind of big sky morning that usually lifted my spirits. But as I stepped into the Gallatin County Courthouse, flanked by my attorney, a no-nonsense public defender type named Rita who'd clawed her way up from trailer parks like mine, the weight hit. Jake was already there, lounging in the defendant's box like he owned the joint, Voss at his side whispering strategy. He caught my eye and smirked, that same cocky tilt to his lips from our Stanford days. When the judge, Honorable Elena Vasquez, a steely Latina who'd presided over half the meth busts in the valley, called us to order, Jake's testimony started the mockery. Your Honor, he drawled, voice dripping with that fake Montana drawl he'd perfected for pitches. Lily's always been about the win. She built the company. Sure. But let's be real. I'm the face. The closer. And now she wants to gut me for it? I'll take half your millions, Lil. And you'll be left coding apps for cat toys in some Boise basement. The gallery tittered, mostly his buddies from the Chamber of Commerce, faces flushed with schadenfreude.
Rita objected.
But Vasquez let it slide with a warning gavel bang. My pulse thundered, fists clenched under the table. Half my millions. As if they weren't ours. Forged in my sweat and his sleaze. It was my turn. I took the stand, the wood cool under my palms as I swore the oath. Voss cross-examined first, lobbing softballs laced with venom. MS. Hargrove, isn't it true you've prioritized your career over your marriage? Late nights. Travel, leaving Mr. Hargrove to fend for himself emotionally. I met his gaze. Steady as the Rockies. Mr. Voss. My career was our marriage. Without the code, there'd be no millions to mock. A ripple of uneasy laughter. Then Jake leaned forward, unable to resist.
Oh.
Come on.
Judge.
She's bluffing. Lily's got secrets that'd make your hair curl. Vasquez's eyes narrowed. Mr. Hargrove, control yourself. But he was on a roll, Voss egging him on with sidelong nods. That's when I stood, envelope in hand, my voice slicing through the tension like a winter wind. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to introduce evidence that reframes this entire proceeding. The room hushed. Jake's smirk faltered. Just a flicker. But I caught it, the first crack in his armor. I approached the bench, the envelope heavy as lead, and slid it across the polished surface. Vasquez opened it slowly, her expression unreadable as she scanned the top sheet, a forensic accounting report, time-stamped and notarized, tracing every illicit transfer back to Jake's IP address. Gasps echoed from the gallery. Voss jumped up, sputtering objections. Hearsay. Irrelevant to dissolution. But Vasquez silenced him with a raised hand. Flipping pages, affair transcripts from the nanny cam, emails to the divorce attorney plotting my frame-up, even bank statements showing the USDA bribes funneled through the Yoga Instructors LLC as consulting fees. Jake's face drained of color, his lawyer yanking at his sleeve.
This
Is fabricated, he stammered from the box, but his voice cracked like thin ice. I turned to him then, the first time I'd addressed him directly in months. Fabricated? Like the logs you planted to make me the thief? Or the accident you staged with the auditors? I covered for you.
Jake
Took the fall so you could play CEO. But half my millions?
No.
You get what's left after the feds take their cut. The courtroom erupted, reporters scrambling for phones. Spectators murmuring in clusters. Some nodding approval. Others shooting me sympathetic glances, like I'd just confessed to the crime myself. Vasquez adjourned for recess. Her gavel a thunderclap. And as deputies escorted Jake out, our eyes locked. His held not just shock, but something darker, betrayal, as if I'd stolen his script. In that moment, I felt the twist of the knife I'd plunged. By exposing him, I'd torched the company too. The empire we'd bled for reduced to ashes in one envelope. Was it revenge? Or mutual destruction? The line blurred. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd shot us both. The recess stretched into an eternity. The courthouse hallway a pressure cooker of whispers and sidelong stares. I huddled with Rita in a stuffy consultation room, the air thick with stale coffee and printer toner, as she pored over backups of the envelope's contents on her laptop. This is dynamite, Lily, she said, her Bozeman accent clipping the words like barbed wire. Fraud, bribery, perjury in the making. But it's a double-edged sword. Hargrove Innovations is community here.
Jobs.
Innovation. Exposing this could gut the valley. I nodded, staring at the scuffed linoleum, the weight of her words settling like fresh snow. Gut the valley. 50 employees in Bozeman alone. Families who'd bought homes on the strength of our stock options. I'd thought only of Jake's smug face. Not the ripple effect, the layoffs. The headlines screaming local tech darling implodes in scandal. Was this justice? Or just vengeance dressed in legalese? Rita squeezed my shoulder, her calloused hand a reminder of the women like us, scraping by in a man's world. Stick to the plan. We pivot to criminal if boss pushes back. Back in session. The air crackled like the prelude to a thunderstorm. Vasquez reconvened with a gravity that pinned everyone in place. Her robes a black cascade over the bench. MS. Hargrove's evidence raises serious concerns beyond this dissolution, she intoned, voice echoing off the paneled walls. The court is compelled to notify federal authorities. Proceedings suspended pending investigation. Voss exploded. Ty Askew, demanding mistrial. But it was futile. Jake was cuffed right there. The metallic click louder than any gavel. He twisted in the deputy's grip, eyes boring into mine with a venom that chilled deeper than any Montana winter. You bitch, he hissed, low enough for only me to hear. You just killed us all. As they hauled him away, the gallery fractured, his cronies muttering about witch hunts, my few allies, a coder from the early days, a barista who'd overheard his bar confessions, shooting me nods of grim solidarity. Reporters swarmed the steps outside, mics thrusting like bayonets. MS. Hargrove. Was this about revenge or reform? I pushed through, Rita's arm a shield, but the question lodged in my throat. Revenge? Absolutely. But reform? The company I'd birthed. Now a corpse on the slab. The fallout hit like a freight train. By evening, CNBC had picked up the wire fraud angle. Ticker symbols flashing, Hargrove Innovations stock plummeting 80% in after-hours trading. Jake's brother, Tom, the family golden child who'd always resented my outsider status, called from their parents' ranch in Billings. Voice slurred with bourbon. "You happy now, Lily? Dad's heartbroken. This'll kill him." I hung up without a word, curling into the motel bed Rita had booked under her name. The thin sheets no match for the ache in my chest. Happy?
No.
But free?
God.
Yes, for the first time in years. The noose around my neck loosened. Sleep evaded me, chased away by ghosts of what-ifs. What if I'd confronted him that first night with the audit trails? Before the lies calcified? What if I'd walked away after the hotel receipt? Let the company fracture clean? Instead, I'd played the loyal wife, the fixer, the fool. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, and I drove to the cabin alone. The winding road, through pine thickets, a blur of regret. Inside, the place reeked of neglect, dishes piled in the sink from his last solo weekend, the bed still rumpled from his tryst. I packed methodically, my laptop, the prototype AI rig from the garage, photo albums from our Stanford days that now felt like evidence in a cold case. But as I rifled through his desk drawers, I found the twist that nearly broke me, a slim flash drive labeled contingency. Heart pounding. I plugged it into my tablet. Files unfolded like a house of mirrors, not just backups of his fraud docs, but countermeasures. Screenshots of my own indiscretions, late-night chats with a venture scout in Seattle that he'd twisted into flirtation, altered emails making it look like I'd greenlit the bribes. And worse, a video, grainy but damning, of me in the cabin kitchen 2 years back, mid-rant after a board fight, hurling a glass at the wall. Saiko ex-father. Primed for tabloids. He'd been playing chess while I mopped the floor. Rage surged, hot and clarifying. I smashed the drive under my boot, shards scattering like brittle trust, then torched the lot in the fire pit out back. Flames licked the evidence skyward, sparks dancing like fireflies in the chill air. As the last embers died, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk."
Elena Vasquez?
No, the yoga instructor.
Elena Ruiz.
Her handle was a ghost from Jake's phone logs. But why now? We met at a roadside diner off I-90, the kind with vinyl booths cracked from decades of trucker regrets. She slid into the seat opposite, her lithe frame swallowed by an oversized flannel, eyes wary but sharp. "I know what you're thinking," she started, stirring black coffee with a spoon that clinked like accusations. "That I'm the homewrecker." But Jake. He lied to me too. Turns out, he'd recruited her not just for Benz and pretzels, but as a front, her LLC the laundromat for his bribes, her consulting gigs padding his poker losses. She'd fallen hard, the Montana dream of escaping her dead-end job in Whitefish, only to wake up complicit in felony. "I want out," she whispered, glancing at the door like feds might burst in. "Testify. Against him. But I need protection, witness relocation. Something." Controversy coiled in her words. Here was Jake's victim number 2, begging alliance from his number 1. I should have walked, let her drown in her own mess. But her eyes, haunted mirrors of my own, held me. "Why me?" I asked. She slid a napkin across, scribbled coordinates to a storage unit in Missoula. "Because you covered for him once. Don't let him bury us both." We drove there in silence, her Jeep rattling over potholes, the Bitterroot Peaks mocking our fragility. The unit was a time capsule of Jake's paranoia. Boxes of burner phones, ledgers in code, even a go bag stuffed with cash and fake IDs. Elena rifled through, pulling a ledger that matched my envelope's trails, undeniable proof of the USDA payoffs. "This is it," she breathed. The nail in his coffin. But as we loaded it into my trunk, tires crunched outside. Headlights pierced the gloom. Tom Hargrove's F-150. Engine growling like a cornered bear. He stepped out, shotgun racked casual-like. The family heirloom from their dad's duck hunts. "Ladies," he drawled, boots scuffing gravel. "Heard you were sightseeing." Elena froze. I stepped forward. Pulse a war drum. Tom had always been Jake's shadow, the enabler who covered bar tabs and buried family skeletons. "This ends now."
Tom.
"Walk away." He laughed, bitter as wormwood. "Ends? You started this. City girl. Jake's my blood. And that company's half the county's lifeline." The standoff stretched taut, gun leveled. Shadows lengthening. Elena edged toward her jeep, but Tom swung the barrel. "Don't." My mind raced. Bolt for cover. Scream for help in this godforsaken nowhere? Or talk him down? Appeal to the brother who'd once toasted my wedding with tears in his eyes? "Tom. Listen. Jake used you too, your ranch, as collateral for those loans. Check the fine print." It was a Hail Mary, pieced from overheard calls, but his eyes flickered doubt. The barrel dipped. Just inches. Bullshit. But he lowered it fully, cursing under his breath. "Get out. Both of you." Before I changed my mind, we peeled out, hearts hammering, the ledger safe in my lap. Elena dropped me at the motel with a shaky hug, "We're even now," and vanished into the night, her taillights fading like a bad dream. Alone again. I stared at the ceiling, the moral quagmire deepening. I just armed a potential co-conspirator, blurred the lines between avenger and accessory. Was Elena ally or opportunist? Tom protector or pawn? And me, heroine or the villain who'd lit the fuse on her own world? The feds moved fast. By week's end, Jake was in federal holding in Billings, Voss scrambling for bail hearings that Vasquez shot down cold. Indictments dropped like anvils. Wire fraud, bribery, conspiracy. The Chronicle ran front pages. Hargrove CEO faces 20 years. Wife's testimony seals fate. But the byline twisted the knife. Betrayed bride or corporate saboteur? Public opinion splintered. Justice for Lily trending on X alongside Save Hargrove jobs. Protesters picketing the courthouse with signs reading, "Divorce drama or economic terror?" I holed up in the motel, fielding calls from the board, begging buyout offers to salvage the IP. Reporters, thirsty for soundbites. Even my parents, voicemails laced with disappointment. "We raised you better than spite. Honey." The cabin called, a siren song of solitude. So I returned, fortifying it like a bunker, deadbolts, motion lights, a Glock I'd bought on impulse from a pawn shop in Livingston. Nights blurred into code binges, resurrecting old projects on a burner laptop, an open-source agritech fork, free for ranchers like my folks. Revenge in binary. Maybe, dismantling his legacy one commit at a time. Then the twist landed, courtesy of a knock at dawn. Not feds. Not Tom, but Elena, disheveled, a duffel at her feet.
"They found the unit," she gasped.
"Raided it last night. Jake's people, Voss's paralegal. Tipped off." Panic clawed my throat. The ledger? Seized as evidence against her now. Voss spinning it as her solo scheme. He's turning it on us, she sobbed. Says I seduced him into it.
And you.
You're the jealous puppet master. The room spun.
Jake.
Even in chains. Flipping the board. Me not savior, but schemer. Elena's eyes pleaded. Run with me. We exposed the rest, his poker ring. The Cayman setup.
Run?
To where? Canada's border. A new life in anonymity? Or fight? Drag this into the light. Consequences be damned? I poured us coffee. Black as sin. And weighed the scales. Flight meant guilt by association. Fight meant total war. The valley's jobs. My parents' pride. Jake's rotting soul. All hung in the balance. In the end, I chose the abyss. We go public, I said, voice steady as rebar. Your story. My files straight to the U.S. Attorney.
Elena nodded.
Tears carving tracks through her makeup. As we plotted over diner napkins, press conference, whistleblower protections, the dawn light slanted gold through the blinds, illuminating the fracture lines in us both. No heroes here, just survivors clawing from the wreckage. And as Jake's empire smoldered, I wondered, had I stunned him in court? Or merely ignited the blaze that would consume us all? The press conference was Rita's idea, staged in the shadow of the state capitol in Helena under a sky bruised with thunderheads. Microphones bristled like porcupine quills. Cameras from CNN to the local ABC affiliate hungry for blood. Elena and I stood shoulder to shoulder on the steps. Her in a simple sheath dress that screamed vulnerability. Me in jeans and a blazer. Idaho grit meets corporate casualty. Rita flanked us, a lioness in pearls, as I stepped to the podium. This isn't about divorce, I began, voice amplified echoing off marble. It's about a system that lets men like Jake Hargrove steal dreams. Ours. Our employees. Our communities. While women like us clean up the shards. Elena followed. Her testimony a gut punch. The grooming. The coercion masked as romance. The LLC as a noose tightening around her neck. He promised the stars, she said, voice breaking just right for the lenses. But it was all smoke, federal crimes hidden in yoga poses and whispered lies. Questions flew. Ethics of my cover-up. Fallout for the Valley's agritech sector. But we held the line. Dropping hints of deeper rot. Jake's ties to a network of tech fraudsters. Poker dens doubling as money laundries. By night's end, Hargrove heist trended nationwide. Petitions circulating for congressional probes into USDA corruption. Jake's response was swift and slimy. From his cell, he fed Voss leaks to Fox News. My wife's on a vendetta.
Folks.
Fabricated evidence. Coerced witnesses. This is cancel culture meets courtroom drama. Clips looped grainy stills from that smashed video. My rant edited to paint me unhinged. His supporters rallied. A GoFundMe for legal justice for Jake, swelling with donations from Bozeman's old guard. Ranchers who'd benefited from his greased rags. She's destroying Montana made one viral post read, racking likes from folks I'd coded yields for. The split deepened, women's groups demanding solidarity, while chamber emails branded me economic terrorist. Isolation crept in like fog off the river. My parents finally called, Dad's voice gravel from years of pipe smoke. Lil, we saw the news. Tom's saying Jake's innocent. That you pushed him to it. Pushed him?
To fraud?
I bit back the retort. The old wounds reopening. How I'd left the ranch at 18. Code my ticket out of their endless winters.
Dad.
It's bigger than us. But he sighed. Heavy as a dropped bale. Bigger means collateral. Honey, come home. Home.
The word tasted like ash.
Elena crashed at the cabin. Our uneasy alliance forged in shared paranoia. Deadbolts checked twice. Curtains drawn against phantom headlights. Nights. We dissect Jake's playbook over microwave burritos and true crime pods. Her laughter brittle as she recounted his cowboy charm, line dancing at the cove in Missoula, where he'd spin her like a trophy. I thought he was different, she'd say, tracing scars on her wrist from a clumsy fall during an argument. My own bruises were invisible, gaslit doubts, the slow erosion of self. We'd toast with cheap Merlot, to stunning the bastard, but cracks spiderwebbed. One stormy afternoon, rifling through seized files the feds deigned to share, I uncovered the real gut twist. Jake hadn't just framed me for the fraud, he'd leveraged my past. Buried in the Cayman's docks, a payment to a PI, digging into my Idaho roots. Turns out, he'd unearthed my secret, not mine, but my brother's. Ethan. The ghost died buried at 16, the car wreck on Route 93. DUI manslaughter after a kegger in Twin Falls. I'd taken the fall, falsified my license age, confessed to the cops as the driver to shield him. Our parents' golden boy. From juvie and their farm's ruin. Sentence. Community service. Probation. A record that dogged my Stanford apps until Jake's connections scrubbed it clean pre-marriage.
How?
He'd known from day one, vetted me like a startup. Used it as leverage in our vows. The contingency drive? Backups of Ethan's sealed file. Ready to unseal if I ever turned. Insurance, a sticky note read in Jake's scrawl. My hands shook as I read. Bile rising. I'd covered for one brother to save the family, then another husband to save the dream. Pattern of fools. Elena found me retching in the bathroom, held my hair back like a sister. He weaponized your loyalty, she murmured. But that's his endgame, make us all complicit. The climax brewed in a hearing room downtown, Vasquez presiding over Jake's bail revocation. Boss pushed for release, citing character witnesses from the chamber. But the feds countered with Elena's affidavit and my supplemental drive, Ethan's file included, twisted to show Jake's blackmail as the true crime. Jake took the stand, haggard in orange jumpsuit. The boyish charm curdled to desperation. Lily's twisting this, he pleaded, eyes wet. I loved her, cover her skeletons, so we could build something real. This fraud? Her idea. Your honor. She handled the codes. The transfers. I was blind. Gasps rippled. Voss nodded solemnly. Sliding evidence, my old emails. Cherry-picked to imply complicity. The room polarized, his allies murmuring agreement, my supporters scoffing at the gall. Vasquez's face was granite. But I saw the flicker, doubt. The seed of ambiguity. Rita leaned in. Counter now. Or he walks. My cue. I rose. Envelope 2.0 in hand. Forensic logs proving his logins. Ethan's file annotated with timestamps of Jake's PI hires. He didn't cover me.
Judge. He caged me.
Used my brother's mistake. A mistake I owned to protect my family, like a dog on a chain. The gallery held its breath. Jake lunged forward. Chains rattling.
Lies.
She confessed to the wreck, drunk. Reckless. I saved her career. Voss yanked him back. But the damage bloomed, whispers of who took the fall, splitting the crowd. Vasquez adjourned. Face stormy. But as we filed out, a juror, an older woman with rancher's hands, slipped me a nod.
Heard enough.
You're brave. Brave? or buried in my own grave digging. That night, the storm broke, literal and figurative. Rain lashed the cabin roof as Elena paced, phone glued to her ear with a DA contact. "They're offering Jake a deal," she hissed. "Flip on the USDA guy for reduced time. Walks in 5 if he drags us down. 5 years for empire building on bones?" My blood boiled. I grabbed keys. "We're ending this." Destination: the federal lockup in Billings. Visitor hours be damned. Rita protested, tampering charges, but Elena drove. Thunder our accomplice. Visitation was a sterile box, plexiglass and intercom buzz. Jake shuffled in, gaunt but grinning that predator smile.
Lil.
"Come to gloat." I pressed the receiver. "Deal's off." "Ethan's file?" I leaked it to the press. "Your insurance is public now. Montana Morning ran it this morning." Hero sister or felon enabler? Readers choose. His grin fractured. "You wouldn't, but I had anonymous tip. The story framing my cover-up as small-town loyalty. His blackmail as the villainy. Public tide turned. Lilly legacy surging. Donations to agri-tech nonprofits in my name. He slammed the partition. "Monster. You think this wins? Company's dead. Valley hates you. My blood on your hands."
Blood.
The word hung, heavy as the brother's wreck I'd shouldered. Elena's hand on mine steadied me. "Your hands are clean."
Jake.
"Ours? Stained, but scrubbing." We left him raging, the guard hauling him away like yesterday's trash. Back home, the twist unraveled further. A voicemail from Ethan, first in years, crackling with static from the ranch. "Saw the news? Sis." "About the wreck." "Why didn't you tell me?" I could have manned up. Tears pricked. Manned up. The myth that chained us all. I called back. Voice raw. Too late for should-haves. But maybe not for fixing. We talked till dawn, forgiveness tentative as spring thaw. Plans for him to testify on the family pressure that birthed my lie. The valley shifted slow. Protests fizzled into town halls. The board selling IP to a Denver firm with promises of rehiring locals. Elena landed a gig teaching yoga at a women's shelter. Her story fueling grants.
Mi y coded solo.
A quiet app for rural broadband that connected isolated ranches like ours once was. Jake's sentencing loomed, 20 years. No deal after the leak, but whispers of appeal. Of him painting me the mastermind in appeals briefs. In quiet moments, staring at the Bitterroot stars, I debated the win. Stunned him? Yes. In court and cage. But the cost shattered community. Fractured kin. My soul's ledger in red. A happy ending? Tragic farce? Readers, jurors of hindsight, you decide.
Me?
I breathe freer. Envelope empty. But the echo of his mockery lingers. Half the millions. Half the blame. And in America's heartland grind, that's the real revenge, surviving the split. Epilogues don't come tidy in stories like this. Not when the lines between betrayer and betrayed blur like smudged ink on a rain-soaked contract. 6 months post-sentencing. Jake's appeal hit the docket in Great Falls Federal. A circus of suits and subpoenas that pulled me back into the fray like a riptide. Vasquez had recused, conflict from the divorce tie-in, and the new judge. A grizzled vet named Harlan Thorpe with a penchant for hunting exposés. Eyed me like fresh venison during my recall testimony. MS. Hargrove, he drawled. Drawl thick as sorghum. You admit to falsifying records in the initial fraud. Obstruction? Or spousal loyalty gone awry? The courtroom. packed tighter than a Black Friday sale at the Missoula Walmart. Hung on my answer. Jake sat across, bulked up from jail yard push-ups, his gaze a laser of calculated hate. Voss, retained on contingency from donor slush, had spun a narrative worthy of a Netflix doc, me as the Ice Queen architect, puppeteering Jake into crime for control, then flipping the script when the spotlight dimmed. Evidence? That damned video remix. Now viral on conservative pods. Plus, whistleblower, affidavits from ex-employees I'd pink-slipped during the audit scramble. She ran the show, one claimed, a coder I'd mentored now bitter over lost stock. The gallery nodded, half locals clinging to the good old boy myth, half out-of-towners chasing scandal porn. I leaned into the mic, the wood lectern grounding me like cabin beams in a gale. Awry, Your Honor. Loyalty's a blindfold, not a blueprint. I buried his mess to save us. Company. Marriage. The patch of earth we called home. But when he turned the shovel on me, I dug out. Thorpe's bushy brows arched, a titter from the press row. Jake shifted, chains whispering promise of retaliation.
The twist?
Thorpe called an impromptu sidebar, then dropped the bomb, Ethan's file, unsealed and entered. Not as liability, but exhibit of pattern, Jake's blackmail a felony add-on, escalating his bid to life without. Voss erupted, demanding mistrial, but Thorpe quashed it with a glare that could curdle milk. This court's about truth. Counselor, not tall tales. As deputies refastened Jake's cuffs, tighter this time. For the new charge, his mask shattered fully. You win, Lil, he snarled through the rail. But remember, I made you. Without my charm, you're just a ranch rat with a keyboard. The words landed like buckshot, scattering old shames. Made me, or molded me into his echo. Adjournment brought chaos, reporters mobbing the hall. A fistfight between pro-Jake ranchers and Me Too activists spilling onto the lawn. I slipped out a side door, Rita's sedan idling like a getaway horse. It's over, she said, merging onto I-90 westbound. Over? The word felt foreign, like trying on someone else's boots. Elena waited at a rest stop near Bozeman, thermos of spiked cocoa steaming in the chill. Heard the verdict leak, life. No appeal traction. We hugged fierce. Her frame solid now. Scars fading under fresh ink. A phoenix tattoo. Rebirth inked over regret. The drive home unwound the knots. Ethan rode shotgun in spirit, his truck tailing us from Helena. First family convoy since the wedding. Brought the good rig, he joked over CB crackle. Voice lighter than I'd heard since high school. At the ranch, Ma set out pot roast and rhubarb pie. Dad's handshake firm without the flinch. Proud of you, kid, he muttered, eyes on the horizon where the wrecks of our pasts lay buried. Ethan pulled me aside later. Under the cottonwoods where we'd once plotted my escape, I got the ranch app you coded, boosted yields 20%. Saved the back 40.
Saved.
The echo rippled, me saving them. Them saving me. A loop closing slow. Hargrove Innovations carcass picked clean by vultures. But from the bones rose something feral. Lily Labs. My solo venture bootstrapped on whistleblower grants and crowd funds from Valley women who DM'd stories of their own Jakes. Elena consulted on ethics modules, AI for detecting coercion in relationships. A quiet fuck you to the gaslighting grid. We hired locals first. The laid-off coders I'd betrayed, offering equity and therapy stipends. Controversial? Hell yes, tabloids dubbed it revenge tech, boycotts from Jake's old guard. But subscriptions rolled in. Ranches from Idaho to the Dakotas pinging data that greened fields without the grease. One crisp fall eve, as leaves turned the bitterroot bloody, a letter arrived, forwarded from the prison system. Jake's scrawl jagged on yellowed paper. Lil, can't say I blame you. Not anymore. The food here's slop, but the quiet teaches a man his measure. Tell Ethan I'm sorry for the wreck I never owned, the brother I envied. Half the millions?
Keep them.
Built 'em fairer than I ever could. I burned it in the fire pit, ashes scattering on wind that whispered absolution. Sorry? Too late. Or just in time. The debate rages on, online forums dissecting our saga like autopsy slides. Was I avenger or arsonist? Torching the house to spite the husband? Elena the victim or vixen? Trading sheets for subpoenas? Jake the monster or mere man? Felled by ambition's blade? No clean rights. No pure wrongs, just the messy American churn, bootstraps laced with barbed wire. Dreams deferred to debtor's prison. Readers split. As intended, some toasting my envelope as feminist firebomb. Others mourning the jobs as collateral carnage.
Me?
I hike the cabin trails now. Rifle slung for bears, not betrayals. The envelope's ghost a talisman in my pack. Happy? In fragments. Ethan's wedding next spring. Ma's pie still warm. Code compiling clean under starlit skies. Tragic? In the hollows. Nights when mockery echoes. Wondering if stunning him stunned me too. But free? Undeniably. In this land of wide skies and wider grudges. That's the ultimate twist. Survival as the sentence. Revenge as release. And if the judge calls encore, I'll show up. Envelope sealed with wax from the life we lit.